Casey, how's it going? You ready for part one of our conversation? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. And how's it going? I'd say up and down, ebbs and flows, depending on what we hear and don't hear and what news is out there. Because we want to keep the A's here, obviously.
Again, this is part one of our conversation. I guess this goes on my channel. We'll do part two for your YouTube channel. Synergy here, cross-promotion. We're all about that. We've done this before. I think we called it the Howard Terminal Summit, but I think we're going to talk about more than just Howard Terminal here today. People want to bring up the A's with me lately, and I understand, like, baseball season's around the corner, and people are getting excited about just, the season and baseball in general, but I find it hard to even talk about the A's, like, on the field as a product, when I also know in the back of my mind there's something so much more important to the future of the franchise, and that is securing their permanent, forever home, hopefully here in Oakland. Are you the same way, that if people want to talk actual A's baseball, that you almost have to stop them and maybe put them in their place a little bit?
I'm always happy to talk A's baseball, but I think A's baseball is Howard Terminal and what happens with the future of the A's at this point. Because like it or not, the A's are a 100-loss team, most likely. I can tell you right now, I'm going to make my bold prediction. They're not going to win the World Series this year. I know that's surprising, but even if they did win it all this year, it really would only pale in comparison, in my opinion, to the next 50 years of A's baseball and whether or not that is going to be played in Oakland.
Yeah, that's a great point. We haven't heard much. To your point earlier, there's not a lot of people talking about this, like, besides you and I right now, and some others, to be very fair. But like, what should we take away from not just the silence? Because at some point, silence was to be expected. Oakland had some transition in the mayor's office. Maybe the A's at the end of their season decided we'll switch things up here, and maybe negotiations were getting closer. So that was understood. But now it's been an extended silence to the point where pretty soon, like by opening day, we'll be at the 6-month mark of not a lot of people talking. In fact, the guy who's been doing the most talking is Commissioner Rob Manfred, and he's usually speaking from 30,000 feet about stuff that's already been said, that's new to the national media, but not new to the local media. So I don't know what I'm supposed to take away from the extended silence here.
Yeah, and I think with Rob Manfred, his speaking out has a very clear and specific agenda, and every time that agenda is to make Vegas look like a legitimate threat, because they need Vegas to look like a legitimate threat so that they can keep maximum pressure on Oakland. As far as the A's, I accepted early on when they told me that the silence and they're not going to speak is because of the active negotiations, and I didn't want to do anything to mess up active negotiations. That I understood. That's fair, but it's been so long now that I'm not entirely sure that's the case anymore. And it feels like they're, in a way, dodging their responsibility to the fans, dodging their responsibility to the public. And then on the political side, you really have to pull any kind of Howard Terminal / A's comment out of the mayor and her new administration. So it's not great. I think that there are a lot of people that need answers and want answers. And I think one thing that the A's could be doing, maybe not commenting on negotiations or speaking to us, but just firing up their fan base on the idea, like keep selling the idea of the new stadium and Howard Terminal and the future in Oakland. You're not even really hearing that. They're not even really updating their new ballpark website even. I mean, there's a lot that they could be doing better, I think.
So how about the fact that the commissioner had not yet spoken to Oakland's new mayor, Sheng Tao? Now, I think at the point he said that, it was only about 6 weeks removed from her officially taking office. She's had a full plate. We know about the police chief being dismissed and all the other stuff going on. But if you're Rob Manfred, to come out and say, well, I haven't even talked to her yet. I mean, were you expecting that she would start that conversation? And if he's really pursuing the best interests of one of his teams, why wouldn't he have at least reached out? I mean, it almost seemed like a pride factor that he hadn't reached out yet.
Yeah, it's sort of insulting, frankly. I mean, Oakland is a Major League Baseball market. It's a place that has held Major League Baseball games, since 1968. And to just turn your back on Oakland and its fans and insult them like that, I think is pretty rude. If you want to look at the situation, sure. If I'm the Oakland mayor, I'm picking up the phone, I'm getting conversation going with the commissioner because I want him to know I'm serious about keeping Major League Baseball here.
Sure.
However, I think it's more on Manfred, and he even put those comments that way. He
Right.
said, I haven't reached out yet. Like,
Right.
he knows he needs to be the one to reach out, and he has
Absolutely.
yet to do so. It's a two-way street. At first, I was kind of mad that the Oakland mayor hadn't spoken with MLB, but now I've actually changed my mind. I think I'm more mad at Manfred than anybody. I think he bears the burden of responsibility there.
Speaking of reaching out, have you had any luck getting any of these sources to talk? Maybe we can break this down later, but people aren't talking in the media. They're not even talking in interviews like this anymore.
No, they're not talking at all. And just for fun, Brody, I emailed Rob Manfred this week, actually, just 2 days ago. I emailed him and I said, have you spoken to the mayor of Oakland yet? And then I emailed the mayor of Oakland's chief of staff and I said, have you spoken with Rob Manfred yet? And neither of them responded. I think next time I'm just going to put one on and then CC the other, and then maybe they'll start talking after that. They'll just take me off. But yeah, no one's responding.
Casey Pratt, matchmaker for Howard Terminal. So a big holdup with the project, and there's a couple of them. Affordable housing, according to Rob Manfred, seems to be one. We can discuss that later. But the infrastructure cost and how that's getting funded. Now, we knew Oakland from a couple years ago said, we're going to go out and achieve this money. We're going to secure it. And at a certain point recently, the number was $350 million secured, but all through state and federal grants. And I've seen, Casey, some even criticism that, oh, well, you're taking public money for infrastructure for a privately financed ballpark, which, okay, that's fine. But let's be very clear. Public money is not coming from Oakland. This is not Oakland money. I'm here to say, this is more of an opinion than a question. You tell me if you agree. There is absolutely nothing wrong with taking federal money or state money and applying it to this project. It's not Oakland money. It's not coming out of their general fund. This money was earmarked to go somewhere. So would you rather have it go to Long Beach, Seattle, Washington, D.C., a different port around the country, or would you rather have it come to, let's be honest, the Port of Oakland? So every time I see that, federal money is public money, sure, that's true, but it is not in any sense going to affect the city and the community of Oakland.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of ways to look at it. Yes, federal money is kind of public money, but
Sure.
In this case, these are grants that are out there because infrastructure is a hot item in the government right now. These grants are out there for application and to try to secure. And so in that way, what this is doing is it's actually preventing the city of Oakland from using their own tax dollars on this, right? Like, the more federal funds they can raise, the more they can bridge the gap, and the less they're going to have to try to pull out of the public in a limited obligation bond or some kind of bond to help pay off the remaining balance due to get this thing locked down. So really, these grants are making it so that the public funds aren't being used locally. There's one big one, Regional Measure 3. I did a whole video on it, and that is our toll dollar that goes up. They raised the bridge tolls around the area.
Very well aware of that.
All that's gone into a pocket of money. A lot of money has been raised out of that, and it was just sitting there waiting to be allocated because of a lawsuit. That lawsuit just cleared. So a big chunk can come out of that now. And then let's also consider, I think this is the most important point. I don't know why I'm just now bringing this up last, and you can weigh in on this too. This stuff has to happen there, whether they build Howard Terminal or not,
right?
Because the infrastructure for the port, the trucks that drive through there all the time, those roads are messed up. The trains are a huge issue. Obviously, you saw the derailment in Ohio. You think trains and train derailments and train infrastructure isn't going to be a hot item now? That's one of the things that's up for discussion here in the grants they're trying to get. So all that stuff is critically important to that area. It doesn't matter if they're even going to build the ballpark. They need it either way.
I think it was my second job, maybe in television, was working at KTVU, Channel 2 in Oakland. Their studios are famously at Jack London Square, just south. But as I used to commute in and out of there, and this was 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, I was always like, is a train going to hit me here? Is this an actual crossing? Where does the street go? I mean, so much. And forget the condition of the streets and sidewalks and sewers and everything else, but just the navigation around there was so poor, and obviously it is in need of the upgrade. You're right, and that's been decades in the making. So the other thing is affordable housing. It seems to be a hiccup, at least as Rob Manfred has detailed. He said that the two sides aren't seeing eye to eye on that. And again, all of that was not a shocker. I think it had been discussed, but when he brought it up a couple weeks ago, maybe we thought that that was something that was better settled and squared away. What I don't understand is how there's not a numerical standard in place, either with the county, state of California, federal government, that says if you do a project like this, we expect at the bare minimum you come up with this percentage of affordable housing. And then you define affordable housing. What does affordable mean, either in this market or all markets, or give us a definition? And so long as the A's or any project comes through with that minimum number at the least, it's hard to maybe try and squeeze more juice out of that orange if you're the city of Oakland. I understand that's what's important to them. That's what's important to the state of California, more housing. And certainly I understand their position in fighting for it, but it's hard to me to try and leverage even more out of that when a baseline is legally set and achieved and probably even being exceeded to a certain degree. How much more can you continue to ask? Again, I don't fault Oakland at all. I hope they get the best deal, absolutely possible. It's just a weird, it's a debate that may never end if Oakland doesn't want it to.
Yeah, and this is where, as a sports guy, and you're a sports guy too, I tend to get over my skis a little bit because the more I look into it, the more confusing it gets. But
True.
I believe the law is actually 15%. The A's situation is they're asking for 30%, 15 on, 15 off site. Like, so 15% of the units at Howard Terminal or something along those lines. And whatever they don't put at Howard Terminal, they either have to put somewhere else or pay into an amount of money that offsets the cost. I think that in the last time I talked to Sheng Tao, the new Oakland mayor, she wanted even 15 and then 25% on the other end. And that's far more than necessary. Like, if they're trying to get 30 and now that's going up higher to 35 even, it seems like it's going to be a very tough sell to finish these negotiations, especially when you look at the shortfall in the offsite. So I think that's really interesting in terms of what is the real number, what is required by law,
right,
and why are we asking for so much more than what is required by law? If it's because we're reimbursing the A's for everything that they're spending on the on-site and we're kicking in all this off-site, yeah, sure. You want that investment to go to something that matters to you. And I can understand that.
Yeah. I mean, I want them to ask for it. That's okay. But to understand that at a certain point, it becomes not negotiable or it becomes a negotiation kind of breaker more than getting the most out of it. Let's talk about the calendar. There are some big deadlines upcoming. I mean, obviously in this calendar year of 2023, but as far as I understand, in the month of May, the A's exclusive negotiating agreement with the Port of Oakland, it expires. Now, I believe this has been in place for a couple years. It also doesn't seem like the biggest deal if it really does expire, because I think you and I know the Port of Oakland wants to do this project. Like, they're very much in favor. So I don't think that they would come to a term where they disagree all of a sudden with this, but it also feels like a foundational piece that without it and with having it expire, it's hard to do any other business when, you're missing that foundation. How do you see it?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest day we have circled on our calendar. If you need one day to circle, it's that one. It's in May. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing that tells us whether or not the A's are actually serious about staying here or that they want to leave, because the 3-year exclusive negotiating agreement with the port expires in May, and they're going to have to extend that at some point, and somewhat publicly, because the port can't just wave a magic wand and this happens. They have to vote on it. It's going to be a public vote, most likely. So I think that if May comes and they don't have an agreement to extend that agreement, it's a problem, because that means, hey, we don't need that land anymore. We're gone.
Right.
Do I think that'll happen? No. I think they're going to extend it because, look, they've spent so much money, so much time, so many resources on trying to get this land cleared from port use.
Right.
You really think they're just going to walk away and let someone else develop that land? Now, conversely, the land is cleared from port use. So if you're some other billionaire developer that wants waterfront property in California, hey, there's your chance. If the A's walk away from it, they did all the heavy lifting. Now you can swoop in. You'd have to do it fast. But it could happen. So maybe the Port has a little more leverage there. But the Port's going to make this as easy as possible on the A's because they want the A's to build there.
And again, as quiet as it's been and as much as people have not talked about this, prominent people have not talked about the project directly, some things like this are inevitable in the timeline that will give us, to your point, a better indication of where things stand. Because you really can't move forward if you don't have this in place. Sheng Tao became the mayor of Oakland back in January, officially sworn in. Look, I'm not a politician. I don't cover politics. Again, we've already put out our disclaimers. We're sports people, but we observe this very closely, and we've gotten to know some of these city council members. It really does seem like Sheng Tao has council member support across the board and with her staff and well-liked internally. But I think as we look at the way she's operated so far, and she's been busy, but I don't know that this project has even been a top 5 thing for her. Certainly not a top 3 in just the way it's been discussed or not discussed. How do we evaluate her beginnings in office and just the initial ways that maybe she's maneuvered this?
Yeah, it's a really tough read, right? Because again, we're sports people, but we need to know what's going on. And you've spoken at length with Sheng Tao, and I've spoken at length with Sheng Tao. And, we know that she's been very public about wanting to keep the A's here. But when she took office, dismissed the police chief, that's become a big scandal. She had an issue with her chief of staff that's still becoming a big thing.
Well, even the ranked choice,
Oakland,
even the ranked choice voting, and that's not her fault. That's the setup, and it's only controversial in the fact that it was so close, the race with she and Lauren Taylor, and that not that the voting. Well, maybe there was some question about how votes were exactly counted, but more so in reverse, looking at the lack of clarity for ranked choice voting, which ultimately might have, in a very small margin, might have swayed it her way. Again, I'm not here to stir up controversy on that. I'm just saying that is background and context just to her being in office, her taking office. Go ahead.
Yeah. It makes things confusing. It was very close. And then in another, I think it was like a Board of Education or something race, they actually counted the votes wrong. And so what kind of confidence does that inspire in the whole process? And so I think the beginnings were kind of murky. And I bring all this up not to criticize her, but to say you could see why our terminal wouldn't be that high on her list. We got all these things to figure out, a city to run.
Fair enough.
So I'm trying to, give her the benefit of the doubt on that front because it's a new administration. However, I think it's got to be an important issue for them at some point here. It gets a little dicey if it doesn't because time is of the essence. And we're talking, May for the Port. I mean, that's 1 month from now.
Yeah.
To bring it all the way back, though, we got off on a tangent, or maybe it was my fault. But does she have city council support? And I'll put this back to you on. Let's just say Mayor Schaaf said, "All right, we got it as close as we can, and there's maybe some grants, maybe not, but we're probably going to have to do a bond now to pay the remaining amount. Let's get this thing done. Here you go, city council. What's your vote?" I think city council would be like, "Nope, not going to do it. No public funds. A's are the backbone, not the city. Dead deal." I think if Mayor Tao negotiates this thing, these grants do come in. The gap is going from like 300 million down to 150 million. Maybe then she could present a limited obligation bond and the city council would be more inclined to help her because she was just on that city council and very well liked by them. Maybe that's the difference in messaging that we're not seeing. Maybe it's not public, maybe it's not me and you, but to the other city councils, I think she'd have the best chance on the planet of securing that deal.
And as much as Oakland is kind of the roadblock right now, and it's a bottleneck. The city of Oakland getting this agreement done, getting the the structure of a deal done. It does seem like Alameda County has to be part of this too. Eventually, they'll have to vote on this too. But it really feels like, and Nate Miley's comments recently on public access television are very clear. The county's in on this. They just want Oakland to be the first to say yes. It's more of an Oakland specific deal. And if they say yes, Alameda County's also in. I think Alameda County could be a huge financial boost to this project, to infrastructure. They're kind of something that hasn't really been discussed because they have really laid low in the weeds. But they're going to be a big part. And quite honestly, I don't see how they're not a much easier part of this equation eventually. Is that what you're feeling too?
Yeah, I think at this point they feel like an easy part of the equation because they were kind of dragged into this whole process, kicking and screaming. But they saw the numbers as presented. They took their vote. They said yes, and now they're just sitting there going, "All right, A's, City, what's going on here? We going to do something?" And I think they wanted to be very clear. We are not the hindrance to this process. That's between the city and the A's, and it very much is at this point.
We've got a couple more minutes here on the Brazil version of the YouTube chat. We'll stop down. We'll have a totally separate conversation for Casey's channel. So make sure if you've watched this far that you go eventually check that out too. So I'll switch gears here. Las Vegas has been in the mix for the A's for almost 2 years now. Like, hard to believe it's already happened for that long of a time. At some point, do you think citizens and sports fans in Las Vegas, do they go from being excited about potential and opportunity to maybe fatigued by what they consider flirting at some point and courting? I mean, we understand it's going to be a process anywhere any team goes or considers. What's your take on, and again, we're Bay Area people here, but what's your take on the Las Vegas attitude of, are the A's coming or not?
Oh, well, to put it in a Las Vegas term, I think they're playing with house money, right? Because they don't have Major League Baseball. They're trying to get it. And I think that they know if they don't get the A's, all of this has put them in a really good shape to get an expansion team. Yes. So I think if I'm a Vegas resident that wants baseball, I'd probably want an expansion team more than the A's because I've seen how this A's ownership group handles spending money. I might just want my own team, not that one. And maybe I don't want to rip a team out of a market that people want to see stay. So maybe I think that the people in Vegas aren't exactly clamoring for the A's so much as they're clamoring for baseball. So I don't know how hurt they would be because I think losing the A's leads to opportunity for them.
So let's go back to Bryce Harper's comments from, I don't know, a week or two ago. Now I've lost track of time. Neither you nor I want to sit here and speak for him, but he was very clear cut. He said the word expansion in terms of that's what he, a Las Vegas born and bred native, like he literally lived there through college, played his baseball there. He wants expansion. He said that word 4 times in 20 seconds. He was very clear about that. Why do you think he was so, he didn't hesitate when asked about this. He knew exactly what he wanted to say. Why was he so straightforward about expansion versus relocation?
Well, I think that to set all this up, yes, Bryce Harper's a big star. But we really need to stress the importance of what that guy means to the baseball market in Las Vegas. I recently saw an interview with the Aviators president because they just did Big League Weekend. Right. And they were talking about big leaguers they would love to see play at that ballpark. And Bryce Harper was like A1 on this guy's list. Bryce Harper is baseball in Las Vegas. That guy is everything to them. And so his comments, I think, mean a lot. And I think that the reason he's talking expansion, amongst other reasons, is, well, if baseball's coming to Las Vegas, you better believe Bryce Harper's going to be approached about it.
Got it.
Right? I think if Bryce Harper's approached about it, he could join into an ownership group.
Got it.
And really give it that leverage and that like real like star power it needs to get above the finish line. And that's just not going to happen if the A's come there, right?
So you're saying it's for him down the line, because you can't be part owner of a team while you're still playing Major League Baseball. So he's thinking of future interest there. And again, we're not speaking for him, but now that you say that, I think a light just came on right up here. And maybe it has less to do with the A's or any other situation, right? So interesting.
Well, they want something that's their own. And he mentioned the Golden Knights, right? Yeah. That's something that is their own. It's a Las Vegas creation. It's their team. You know, the Raiders came, they have a whole history already. If the A's come, they have a whole history already. But you've seen the way you cover the Sharks, the way they rally around the Golden Knights out there. I think it's because it's their own thing. So I'm not just saying Bryce Harper's being selfish. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that I think he would want to be a part of building baseball as its own identity in that market.
Last thing for this video before we transition into the Casey Pratt channel video, the Rio site, which is something you dove deep into a while back. And all of a sudden I saw on your channel, Las Vegas turning into more of the front runner here, but specifically because of the Rio site. I'm here to say I've only done a little bit of research on it. I quickly found out that the owners of that property just got $850 million to do something with the Rio site. It's obviously a hotel that's been around for decades. It's in need of upgrades and probably a total overhaul. Maybe a Major League Baseball facility is part of that. I guess what I don't understand is it's not the prime spot when you consider the Tropicana site. I don't think the festival grounds are much better. It's probably a similar idea, but it's not on the Strip. It's west of I-15. It's at a site which I know you did the superimposition of Allegiant Stadium, like it fits on the property, but I still think they'd have to tear some things down. It just seems like a lot, but it also seems interesting. So what is the deal on the Rio site?
Yeah, if I had to look at the three sites, Tropicana is smack in the middle of the Strip, right? They don't need any help there. That's prime property, and it's always going to be prime property.
One. Yeah.
If you look at, my cat's just running around like a maniac, apologies. If you look at the festival ground site, it's all the way, at the top of the Strip. And that actually is an area where they could really use something to be a magnet for the public. But when the Rio site came on board, I got really worried because Allegiant Stadium is on the other side of the Strip, right? And that's known to be a big success. That is exactly the same positioning the AA Stadium would have if it was at the Rio site. It would be right across from the Strip. Now, you want to be on the Strip, but if you're right across, what do you get? You get the whole beautiful Strip view in the background of your stadium. That's what you get. So it's actually a really cool spot from the aesthetic perspective. The other thing is there's a ton of land on that space, far more than any of the other sites that they're dealing with, I believe. And like you said, Dreamscape, that company that just financed $850 million to improve the Rio. You're going to sink $850 million into upgrading your property. You damn sure want to have something that's going to bring people there, right? You're off Strip. You're not having all these people come no matter what. You put a stadium on that site, you're pulling in a whole bunch of people, just like you'd be pulling in a whole bunch of people at Howard Terminal. So I think that they're highly motivated. I think that if I were the Rio, I would literally sell them that land for $1 because I would want that stadium there.
All right, that does it for part one of our conversation. For part two, just go over to Casey's channel, literally right now.
Yeah, we're going to tell you right from the jump what we think the percentage is the A's stay in Oakland versus Vegas. Right from the jump.
All right, see you there.